Hi, I'm Peter J. Ray. Welcome to Adventures in History. Today's topic is the peninsulas of the world. What a wonderful topic. Very important in geography. Now, a peninsula is land which is surrounded by water on three sides, and on the fourth side by land. So it's connected to the land. Kind of like an island, but, of course an island is water all the way around it. But it's kind of nice you can drive to a peninsula and enjoy the water, especially if it's a relatively small peninsula. But a lot of them are very big, so you don't have a sense of, you just go to the ocean. Now you're not going to have a sense of water being around you on three sides unless it's a smaller peninsula, like San Francisco. So let's talk about the peninsulas of the world. Europe actually is a peninsula. We don't think of it because it's so big. Because Europe has, the subcontinent of Europe has the Mediterranean Sea to the south, the Black Sea to the northeast, I believe, or to the east, to the west the Atlantic Ocean, and to the north the North Sea and the Baltic Sea. So just imagine, Europe is a peninsula. Pretty good. Now, my favorite peninsula is the Balkan Peninsula, which not many people know about. Yeah, I remember in my reading history books, they talk about the Balkans. The Balkans. I thought, what are the Balkans? And then when I finally saw the Balkan Peninsula, the Balkans meaning I believe the countries in the Balkan Peninsula. The Balkan Peninsula is like the largest, most unknown, and fattest peninsula in the world. It's the area between the Adriatic Sea and the Aegean Sea and the Black Sea. It's sort of part of Europe in the southeast. Yeah, a lot of countries in the Balkan Peninsula. In the south, Greece, and going up north, Albania, Bulgaria, Romania, and then the former Yugoslavia republics like Serbia, Slovenia, Bosnia, and Bosnia and Montenegro and Herzegovina and so forth. So yeah, so that's really interesting. Yeah, it's this really wide, very wide peninsula. And actually, much of the Balkan Peninsula was part of the Ottoman Empire, so it was Turkish. Oh, it is part of Europe, but it was a Turkish part of the Turkish Empire, the Ottoman Empire. Very interesting, and so many different nationalities there. These different ethnic groups, which have had a lot, especially the Yugoslav ones, have had a lot of conflict and trouble getting along. Wonderful. The Balkan Peninsula. The Arabian Peninsula. Huge. Yeah, this is a huge, enormous peninsula. And it's mostly Saudi Arabia. It has some of these smaller countries, Yemen, Oman, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and so forth. Bahrain. Yeah, and Kuwait. Well, Kuwait's kind of, is Kuwait part of that? Yeah, I would say Kuwait. So this is a big desert peninsula. All this Saudi oil wealth. Really interesting. And this is the center of for Islam, the holy city of Mecca and also Medina in Saudi Arabia, on the Arabian Peninsula. Very, very, very much a desert peninsula. Okay, the Horn of Africa. Now this is in the northeastern part of Africa. It's Somalia, mostly Somalia, and the Horn of Africa jutting into the Indian Ocean. Yeah, also another kind of a troubled area, since pretty tough political troubles that Somalia has been going through. The Sinai Peninsula, pretty small. Now this is in the Red Sea, part of Egypt. Yeah, and actually for a while the Israelis occupied it. Yeah, this is where in the Bible where Moses where the Israelites were with Moses were being led from slavery in Egypt back to freedom in Israel, and then they wandered in the Sinai. It's also a desert, the Sinai Desert and Peninsula, between the Sahara and Arabia. Okay, the Antarctic Peninsula. Yeah, this is coming toward South America. In fact, this is the area that gets the most attention because it's the most accessible. And you can actually I believe they have cruises. You can take an Antarctic Peninsula cruise, and maybe see icebergs and whales and penguins and so forth. And this has the most activity because it's the warmest, because it's coming up away from the South Pole. Okay, now in China has two pretty fair-sized peninsula, Liaodong and Shandong, and they're in going up toward opposite Korea. And I was thinking that they remind me of lightsabers because they're going toward each other across this across the ocean there in the Yellow Sea, and it's kind of like Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi having a lightsaber duel. The Liaodong and Shandong peninsulas of China. The Chukchi Peninsula in Russia. Now this is the furthest, most eastern part of Siberia, Russia, and it's across from the Seward Peninsula in Alaska. And you have the Bering Straits there, of course. So, yeah, the Chukchi and Seward Peninsulas. Yeah, these are also two peninsulas that face each other. One of my favorites is the Kamchatka Peninsula, part of Siberia, east of the Sea of Okhotsk, and then over by the Sakhalin Island. The Kamchatka, that would be an interesting place to visit. I'm kind of curious about the Kamchatka Peninsula coming up. Again, from the eastern part of Siberia. Okay, have my index cards here. Okay, the Taimyr Peninsula in Russia, which goes into the Arctic Ocean. Yeah, and from what I remember, according to my reading, my memory of my reading, it has the largest reindeer population in the world. You know, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, a lot of reindeer up. And this is going into the Arctic, so it's kind of hard to tell where the peninsula ends and the Arctic starts since the Arctic is frozen most of the year. Anatolian Peninsula. This is basically much of Turkey, or at least Turkey between south of the Black Sea and north of the Mediterranean and east of the Aegean Sea. So much of Turkey, or Anatolia, is peninsula. Basically, Turkey is like a peninsular country. Okay, Kathiawar in India. Now, Kathiawar is in the eastern part of India, and going toward the border of Pakistan. Kathiawar. Korea, yeah, North and South Korea. Too bad they're still tragic. They're still divided. Korea is actually is a peninsula, yeah, and especially both Koreas. And one time it was united, so the whole country, or all of Korea, what's now two Koreas, is a peninsula. Okay, Indochina. Interesting. Going down Southeast Asia, this would include Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, and even the Malay Peninsula as well. So this was part of American history and the Vietnam War. The Indochina Peninsula, the Malay Peninsula. Yeah, though this is real skinny. It's part of it's Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore at the end. Kind of this is a real, you could say a real dramatic peninsula because it's long and skinny. Yeah, and these ships that are trying to go between the Pacific and the Indian Ocean, yeah, they have to go through the Straits of Malacca between Sumatra and the Malay Peninsula to get to where they're going. Bataan. Well, the Americans pronounce Bataan. The Bataan Peninsula in the Philippines, which was well known because of on Luzon Island, because of the Second World War, where they had the so-called Bataan Death March, where Americans and Filipino prisoners of war of the Japanese were marched a long way, and many of them died. The Bicol Peninsula in the Philippines, also on Luzon Island, where my dear wife Alice is from, and her parents, way down south, southern Luzon. And my wife and her parents were from Bicol. They had the Bicol Peninsula from Matnog, Sorsogon, and Legazpi City. Another wonderful peninsula in the Philippines. The Peloponnese Peninsula in Greece. Yeah, much of Greece is a series of islands, but the Peloponnese is you could say really the end of the Balkan Peninsula, or part of the Balkan Peninsula. Peloponnese. Gallipoli in Turkey. This is a pretty small peninsula. It was famous from the First World War because of the fighting, the Australian attack there against the Turks, two sides of the First World War, and a lot of Australians died in Gallipoli fighting the Turks in the First World War. Brittany in France. Yeah, this kind of shows that France was at one time under a British occupation, you could say, way back when I think it was William the Conqueror. Yeah, Brittany, northwestern France. Iberia, which is Spain and Portugal, yeah, surrounded by water with the Mediterranean and the Atlantic Ocean and the Strait of Gibraltar. So those two countries, Spain and Portugal. Italian, all of Italy, the whole country of Italy is a peninsula. That's interesting. The Italians, they driving around. You can go from one side to the other, from the Mediterranean to the Adriatic. The whole country is one long peninsula. Very helpful for shipping and for fishing and for traveling. Okay, the Crimea in the Black Sea. This is a peninsula, the Black Sea. It's part of the Ukraine. Yeah, and this is the famous, Russian. The Russians enjoy going on vacations in the Crimea. Because it's, well, for them, about as warm as they're going to get. And nice, especially in summer and milder winters. And yeah, this is a bone of contention, yeah, because this is technically Ukrainian, but since Ukraine is an independent country, this is actually their territory. Although I believe that the Russians have taken the Crimea and eastern Ukraine. It's an ongoing thing because they have the power, and this Vladimir Putin decided to do it. And the Russians, that's like their Florida, the Crimea, in the Black Sea. The Kola Peninsula. Now this is another kind of like the Taimyr. This is going into the Arctic, more toward Europe. Scandinavia, Norway and Sweden. Those two countries form the Scandinavian Peninsula between the Atlantic and then this the Baltic Sea and the Gulf of Bothnia. Labrador in Canada. Yeah, Labrador is this big. This is in the northeastern part of Canada. Not a lot of people there. Pretty tough environment. Real cold weather. Labrador. Nova Scotia, a little bit further south from Labrador. Yeah, this is just not too far from the U.S. and the state of Maine, Nova Scotia. Baja California, which is in Mexico, which is a very long, skinny peninsula, and south of California in the U.S. And I think it's pretty dry there in the Baja California. But again, long and skinny, and you can easily get from each side, see the ocean very easily there. The Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. This juts into the Gulf of Mexico. Again, pretty dry place, as far as I know, and it's famous going back to ancient times, the Great Mayan Empire. Alaska, actually the state of Alaska, the whole state of Alaska is actually a peninsula. You got the Arctic to the north, the Pacific to the south, and the Bering Straits to the west. But then the so-called Alaska Peninsula is this skinny peninsula in the southwest, going down to the Aleutian Islands. The Alaska Peninsula. We mentioned the Seward Peninsula. It's opposite to Chukchi in Alaska, and it was named after this Secretary of State, James. I believe his name was James Seward, who negotiated the purchase of Alaska from Russia, and they called it Seward's Folly. People thought, oh, what a waste of money, but it was a very wise investment because Alaska's, especially with this oil that was discovered, petroleum, wonderful state, Alaska. San Francisco, kind of very small peninsula, probably the most expensive real estate in the world in terms of a peninsula, because it's the San Francisco is just the peninsula going up, and then you have the San Francisco Bay to the east, and then the Pacific Ocean to the west, the Golden Gate Bridge crossing over from San Francisco into what's the mainland of California. Yeah, and in San Francisco they can only expand south. Very limited land because you're in a peninsula. You can't expand into the water. And that's a beauty. Yeah, you can really, if you get up, there's some mountain hills there. You can really see all the way around. See Alcatraz Island in San Francisco Bay. Okay, Florida. Yeah, wonderful. It's a U.S. state, and you have the Gulf of Mexico to the west and the Atlantic Ocean to the east. A lot of folks enjoying the nice weather down there and being by the ocean, and unless there's a hurricane or a typhoon, which things can be tough. Cape Cod in Massachusetts. Yeah, again, a lot of vacationers, people enjoy. Yeah, again, a long, skinny peninsula where people really, which means a lot of coastline for people can enjoy the water and so forth. Michigan, the state of Michigan, which is a pretty big peninsula, surrounded by the Great Lakes to the west, Lake Michigan, to the east, Lake Huron. Yeah, so Michigan, yeah, the whole state is really a peninsula. South America, yeah, now this is kind of getting a little crazy. South America, well, especially as you get toward the south, between Argentina and Chile, that's definitely very peninsular. Cape York in Australia, this is in the east, the northeast of Australia, going toward the island of New Guinea. Africa, yeah, Africa. Specifically southern Africa is pretty peninsular, although it's very, very wide. And if we're going to really get carried away, you could say North America is a peninsula, so huge, and also Asia, because Asia is surrounded by water, the Arctic to the north, the Pacific to the east, and the Indian Ocean to the south. Ungava in Canada. Now this is going way up north toward the Hudson Bay and the straits leading into the Atlantic Ocean, and very, very tough, very harsh environment. Melville Peninsula. Now this is also in the far north of Canada, going up toward the Arctic. And finally, the Marblehead Peninsula. Marbleheads is in Lake Erie, not far from here. It's where our family goes on family reunions in Lakeside, Ohio. You take there's a bridge, the Sandusky Bay Bridge, to get to the Marblehead Peninsula. It's surrounded by Lake Erie and the Sandusky Bay. Now, there are many, many more peninsulas around the world, that are much smaller, but these are some of the ones that I chose that are pretty big, or at least that I know of. So anyway, good luck to you with your efforts and interests in geography and history. You might consider checking out our website, Adventures in History, with Peter J. Ray at peterjray.com. Thanks again for watching. I really appreciate it. God bless you. Take care, and I'll see you next time.